Picture this. You're sitting across from someone who used to know you well. They're talking, but something feels off. You're listening, but you're not leaning in anymore. You're calm, polite, distant, and they can feel it. They don't know when it happened, but they know one thing for sure. The person they once had access to is gone. That shift didn't happen overnight. It happened quietly, and I'll explain how later. Right now, you might believe that what broke you was one big moment, one betrayal, one argument, one abandonment, but that's rarely how it works. What actually changes an empath is something slower, something harder to notice. And in a few minutes, I'm going to explain exactly why that kind of damage creates a permanent inner shift. Not bitterness, not cruelty, but distance. Silence is where this change begins. And silence feels unbearable at first. No contact feels like you're cutting off oxygen. Your body reacts before your mind does. You feel restless. You feel heavy. You feel the urge to explain yourself, to soften the tension, to fix what feels broken. That urge doesn't mean you're weak. It means your nervous system learned early on that connection was something you had to maintain, even at your own expense. But here's the truth most people never learn. Silence feels hard because it forces you to feel what you've been avoiding. And that's exactly why it's powerful. When you stop reaching out, you're no longer numbing yourself with hope. You're no longer distracting yourself with effort. You're sitting with the reality of how much you gave and how little you were met. And that awareness hurts, but it also wakes you up. Chasing feels like love when you're an empath. It feels like loyalty. It feels like patience. But psychologically, chasing places you in a lower position. Not because the other person is better than you, but because you're telling yourself that your presence needs to be earned back. Every unanswered message, every one-sided apology, every time you explain your feelings to someone who isn't listening, you quietly teach yourself that your needs are negotiable. That lesson doesn't just hurt the relationship, it reshapes your identity. Remember this line. Let it land. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. When you chase, your energy contracts. You become focused on their response, their mood, their availability. Your inner world starts revolving around them. When you go silent, that energy returns to you. At first, it feels empty. Then it feels honest. Then it feels strong. I said earlier I'd explain why this shift is quiet. Here it is. Empaths don't change because they want to. They change because something inside them finally gets tired of bleeding. Emotional destruction doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like years of being understanding while feeling unseen, of giving the benefit of the doubt while doubting yourself, of staying calm while slowly disconnecting from your own needs. Silence after that kind of damage isn't a tactic. It's a symptom of self-protection. And no contact feels so painful because it removes the role you were playing. The fixer, the bridge, the emotional anchor. Without that role, you're left with a question you've been avoiding. Who are you when you stop overfunctioning for others? Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. Chasing lowers your position because it tells the story that you are afraid to be without them. Silence tells a different story. Silence says, I can survive my feelings without betraying myself. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've learned that caring without boundaries destroys you. Here's another thing I promised to explain. People often think the empath becomes cold after emotional destruction. That's not what happens. The empath becomes selective. The warmth doesn't disappear. It becomes protected. And protection looks like distance to those who are used to unlimited access. This is why silence unsettles people. Not because it's cruel, but because it removes reassurance without hostility. It creates a mirror, and in that mirror, others are forced to see how much they relied on your emotional labor. But notice this. The silence isn't loud. There are no speeches, no ultimatums, just a steady pulling back, less explaining, less chasing, less emotional availability for those who haven't earned it. That's the personality shift no one talks about. You might feel guilty for it. You might wonder if you're becoming someone you don't recognize. You're not. You're becoming someone who finally recognizes herself. This part matters. The goal of silence is not to make someone miss you. The goal of silence is not to make someone miss you. The goal is to let you feel yourself again. Your anger, your grief, your intuition. These parts couldn't speak when you were busy maintaining the connection. Silence gives them a voice. And here's where we pause for now. Because what happens next is critical. What happens when the other person feels the absence? What shifts in them or doesn't? And how you respond without undoing your healing. We'll go there next. When you step back, the first shift happens inside you, not between you and them. Your nervous system begins to reset. For a long time, it was trained to stay alert, to scan for signs, to manage emotional distance by doing more. Stepping back interrupts that pattern. At first, it feels like anxiety, like something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. What you're feeling is the absence of adrenaline, the absence of effort. Your body is learning a new baseline. Psychologically, stepping back restores your sense of self as a separate person. When you were constantly reaching out, a part of your identity was fused with the relationship. Your mood rose and fell based on their responses. Your sense of safety depended on their attention. When you stop reaching, that fusion loosens. You start to remember where you end and where they begin. And that separation is uncomfortable only because it's unfamiliar. This is where many people panic and rush back. They confuse discomfort with danger, but discomfort is often just growth announcing itself. Now let's talk about what changes in their mind when you stop reaching out. Not to give you control over them, but to give you clarity. When you are always available, always understanding, always smoothing things over, there was no interruption to the dynamic. No pause, no reason for reflection. Your presence filled every gap. When you step back, the gap appears, and gaps create awareness. They begin to notice what's missing. Not just messages, but emotional support, attunement, the sense of being held without effort. If they are capable of self-reflection, they may start to question their role. If they are not, they may simply feel unsettled, irritated, or entitled to your return. Either response tells you something important. This is why silence is powerful, not because it forces change, but because it reveals truth. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. Now let's be honest about the urge to text or call. It doesn't come from logic. It comes from the body. It comes in waves, often strongest at night or in moments of loneliness. When it hits, your mind creates stories. Just one message, just clarity, just closure. But the urge isn't asking for communication. It's asking for regulation. Here's how you handle it without betraying yourself. First, pause. Do nothing for 10 minutes. Not forever. Just 10 minutes. Let the urge peak. Breathe slowly. Longer exhales than inhales. This tells your nervous system you are safe. Second, redirect the energy. Write what you want to say, but don't send it. Be honest. Don't edit. Then read it back and ask yourself one question. What am I really asking for here? Reassurance, validation, control. Once you name the need, the urge loses some of its grip. Third, move your body. Walk, stretch, shake out the tension. This isn't distraction, it's completion. The body needs to discharge the stress response that chasing used to release. And one more thing that matters deeply. Stop monitoring their life. No checking updates. No rereading old conversations. That keeps the attachment alive while pretending you've stepped back. Real silence is clean. It's not passive aggression. It's presence with yourself. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. So what do you focus on daily instead of chasing? You focus on structure and self-trust. When relationships destabilize, people spiral because their days lose shape. Create small anchors. Wake up at a consistent time, eat real food, get outside. These basic acts restore a sense of agency that chasing erodes. You also focus on reclaiming the parts of you that went quiet. What opinions did you soften to keep peace? What needs did you delay to avoid conflict? Start honoring those in small ways. Say no where you used to say yes. Rest where you used to push. Speak honestly where you used to eclish. Speak honestly where you used to explain. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming congruent. You might notice emotions surfacing that you didn't expect. Anger, sadness, relief, even numbness. Let them come. Emotional destruction often numbs before it heals. Silence gives those emotions room to move through instead of turning inward. Here's something subtle that often happens in the other person as well. When you stop chasing, you stop making it easy for them to stay unchanged. They can no longer rely on your emotional labor to maintain the connection. Some will step up, some will step away. Neither is a failure. Both are answers. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. And here's the part people rarely talk about. When you step back, you also stop lying to yourself. You stop pretending that effort equals love. You stop confusing attachment with intimacy. You stop waiting for someone to become who they've shown you they are not ready to be. This doesn't make you superior. It makes you honest. You may feel moments of emptiness. That's normal. For a long time, your sense of purpose may have been tied to holding things together. Now that job is gone. In that space, something else can grow. Clarity, calm, choice. This is not the end of the story. What happens next depends on what the silence reveals, whether they come back differently, or whether their absence becomes the final truth. And most importantly, how you respond without undoing the work you've begun. That's what we need to talk about next. If they come back, this is where everything slows down on purpose. Not because you're punishing them. Not because you're afraid, but because speed is how old patterns sneak back in. When someone returns after distance, your body may want relief. It may want reassurance. It may want to collapse back into what's familiar. That's the moment to stay grounded. You don't owe a performance. You don't owe a long explanation of your silence. You don't owe emotional access just because they reappeared. You let actions speak before emotions rush in. You notice whether their presence feels steady or anxious, whether they are curious about you or simply uncomfortable without you. Boundaries at this stage are not rules you announce. They are limits you live by. Go at a pace that keeps you regulated, not excited, not frozen, regulated. If they want closeness, let it be built through consistency, not intensity, through reliability, not promises. Anyone can sound sincere in a moment of loss. Only behavior over time tells the truth. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. If they question your distance, you don't defend it. You can say you needed space to reconnect with yourself. And then you stop talking. Watch how they respond to that calm. Someone capable of real connection will respect it. Someone attached to access may push against it. That reaction is information. Let it guide you. You're not here to convince someone you've changed. You are here to see if the connection can meet you where you are now, with standards, with presence, with mutual effort. And if they don't come back, this is where silence finishes its work. Not with bitterness, with clarity. Silence reveals truth either way. If someone can lose you without moving towards you, the connection was not being held by two people. It was being held by your effort. And effort alone is not a relationship. This is where closure comes from, not from one last message, not from being understood. Closure comes from accepting what has already been shown, from no longer arguing with reality, from letting the story end without rewriting it to protect someone else. Grief will come. Let it. You're not grieving just a person. You're grieving the version of yourself who stayed longer than she should have. Be gentle with her. She was loyal. She was hopeful. She was trying to keep love alive. Now you're teaching her that love doesn't require self-erasure. Moving forward doesn't mean becoming guarded in every direction. It means becoming selective. You keep your warmth. You just stop offering it where it isn't met. You don't close your heart. You anchor it. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. Here's the quiet power in all of this. When you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop performing emotional labor for people who won't meet you, you return to yourself. Your energy stabilizes. Your intuition sharpens. Your standards rise without force. You no longer need to be loud to be clear. Let's bring this together quickly. Silence feels hard because it removes distraction. It's powerful because it restores truth. Chasing lowers your position because it teaches you to negotiate your worth. Stepping back restores your dignity. If they return, you move slowly. Watch behavior and hold standards. If they don't, you accept what was revealed and walk forward with your self-respect intact. Here is one clear action step. For the next week, practice responding instead of initiating. In every area of your life, messages, plans, emotional conversations, notice how your body feels when you don't rush to fill space. That awareness will teach you more than any explanation ever could. Self-respect changes the room before words ever do. You are not disappearing. You are no longer performing. And the people meant to walk with you will recognize the difference immediately. If this resonated, watch the next video where we explore the subtle signs you're overgiving in relationships, even when it looks like love.